Hi, my name is John Sifferman. I'm the creator of physicalliving.com, where I teach health first fitness and physical culture to my readers around the world. In this video, I'm going to show you the correct way to perform the pull-up and the chin-up exercises. I see a lot of sloppy pull-ups and chin-ups in the gym and online, and so this video is to clear up the confusion. I'm not only going to show you the technique tips, but I'm going to show you all the subtle nuances that will help you optimize your performance so that you're not just doing them correctly, but you're doing them as best as you can so that you can get as much benefit out of the exercise as possible and minimize the risk of injury. And shoulder injuries are very common with people who do pull-ups incorrectly, so we want to avoid that. Now, pull-ups are a really challenging exercise, but that doesn't mean that they're out of reach. I know many men and women in their 50s and 60s who have never done a pull-up in their life, and they've progressively worked their way up to being able to perform an unassisted pull-up or chin-up, and then they've gone beyond that, sets of 8, 10, and 12. And I've also known people who are overweight who've worked very hard, diligently, with dedication, and have eventually worked their way up to their first full unassisted pull-up. And so if you're a beginner to pull-ups, then this video is definitely for you, but if you're also a seasoned fitness trainee and you're familiar with pull-ups and you're just looking for some tips to improve your performance, this video is going to cover that too. I'm going to cover all the subtle nuances behind pull-ups and chin-ups that will definitely improve your performance if you aren't using them already. Just some little changes that you can make to your technique that will make a big difference. So today we're using just a door frame pull-up bar. It's the ProFit Iron Gym Total Upper Body Workout Bar. I reviewed this in another video if you're interested. I think it's great for its purpose. So before we begin on all the little nitty-gritty details, I just want to show you basic technique. Just get the initial questions out of the way. So I'll show you a few reps of pull-ups, and basically what we're looking for here is we're gripping the bar at about a shoulder width grip, allowing ourselves to hang so that the elbows are locked, keeping the shoulders packed down, and then using the muscles of the arm, in particular the bicep muscles, and of the upper back, the lat muscles. We're going to contract those until our head approaches the bar and we can't go any further. Then you've got to lower yourself down under control, keeping the elbows locked, keeping the shoulders pulled down instead of sliding up, so we want to stay here. And then repeat. And we're exhaling on the effort portion, so exhaling as we go up. Inhaling down. So that's the pull-ups exercise, and the only difference between pull-ups and chin-ups is hand placement. So just to clear it up, the pull-up is a grip where your palms are away from you, and they're generally about shoulder width apart, a little wider. We're going to cover that in a minute. And the chin-up is palms facing you. So this would be a chin-up, and this would be a pull-up. And the exercises are exactly the same except for that hand placement. And they make some subtle changes to the muscle activation involved in the repetition, but it's really not that much difference. Everything else, the shoulder alignment, the elbow alignment remains the same. So that's basically how to perform a pull-up, but there's a lot of little nitty-gritty details that we can get into to optimize our performance. So I want to start with grip. So I'm going to get a little closer here. A lot of people will grip with their thumb around the bar. So you see that? The thumb around the bar. But what you want to do is you want to grip the thumb over the bar on the side with all your fingers. And the reason for that is because gripping around the bar puts your wrist at an awkward angle, and over time can lead to strain on your wrist, especially over several repetitions or even hundreds of repetitions. So you want the thumb over the bar. Secondly, when gripping where on the hand do you grip? Do you grip with your whole palm, or do you grip with just your fingers? And the answer is just with the fingers. You don't want to grip with the whole hand, because what it does is it flexes your wrist here and your forearm muscles. So these muscles have to remain tight throughout the full range of motion of every repetition, and that's going to get very tiring quickly, and you don't want to fatigue prematurely. You want to fatigue in your prime mover muscles, which is the larger muscles of your arms and your upper back. And that's one of the secrets with optimal pull-up technique, is turning it into a full body exercise instead of just an arms exercise. Because if you're performing pull-ups with just your arms, for the most part, you're not activating these much larger prime mover muscles of the upper back, then you're shortchanging yourself. And making a couple changes to your technique will probably drastically improve your performance. So what we want to do when gripping the bar is grip with the fingers, with the joints of the fingers, so that the wrist can remain neutral, straight, instead of this flexed position. And I'm exaggerating a little bit, but even just a little bit of flexion can make a difference. These muscles will tire out very fast if they're constantly flexed. So hang from the fingers, not from the hand. And as always, thumb on top, not around the bar. So those little tips will help preserve your grip strength, but there's more to it than that. It's also hand placement, which is very important. Basically, there's, for the pull-up, you wanna work on just outside of shoulder width. And this is obviously an individual thing. It depends on your body type. Everybody has different shoulder structure, different shoulder width. If you have really wide shoulders, you're going to have to grip wider than the average. That's why I think it's silly when exercise recommendations say, your hands must be between 16 and 18 inches apart. And that's silly because everybody has a different body type. So what you want to do to find out the optimal placement of where to put your hands is raise your arms above your head and lock out your elbows. You can do this right now. Please follow along with me so you can remember. So you lock out your elbows, and then you want to shrug your shoulders up near your ears and then pull them down, straight down, packing them onto your rib cage. This is a strategy we're going to use in the pull-up itself. But right now we're just trying to figure out exactly where our grip should be. So we're locking the elbows and pulling the shoulders down. And you want to try and keep your arms as vertical as you can while maintaining the elbow lock and the shoulder pack. So if you're trying to go real narrow and you notice that your shoulders are coming up, that's too narrow for you. You want to keep your shoulders packed down, your elbows locked. You might get close to vertical, you might not, but as long as you can maintain those two things, the elbow lock and the shoulder pack, the closer you can get together, that's the optimal hand placement. So you can do this in front of the pull-up bar. Just before a set, you just raise your arms up, lock the elbows, pull your shoulders down, and that's the position on the bar that you want to grip for at least the pull-up exercise. With the chin-up exercise, it's a little different. And again, like I said before, the only difference between these two exercises is hand placement. Everything else is the same. Everything else is constant. But with the chin-up exercise, your shoulders are rotated forward a little bit throughout the range of motion. So you want your elbows and your forearms to be aligned with your shoulder joint. Perfectly straight. So not too far in and not too far out. Those are different exercises, and they have good purposes, but for the standard chin-up, you want them to be vertical. And the reason you want them to be vertical is so that you can use the most efficient technique, because if you have them too close in, you're putting a little bit more strain on your elbow and your shoulder. Same thing if you go a little too wide. You'll get the most muscle recruitment if they're perpendicular to the ground, but also lined up straight with your shoulders. So, with my shoulder structure, my pull-up grip is slightly outside my shoulder width, and that's just because of my individual shoulder mobility. And for my chin-up grip, it's a little bit narrower because I'm aligning my arms with my shoulders themselves. So that covers hand placement. And there's all sorts of different kinds of hand placement. There's mountain climber grips where your palms are facing each other but they're on either side of the bar. There's hands facing each other, a parallel grip. There's just all sorts of different kinds. There's many different ways to do pull-ups for slightly different benefits. But all these other things remain constant. Thumb on top, gripping with the fingers instead of the whole hand, keeping the shoulders packed down, and next we have elbow positioning throughout the range of motion. This is really important. It's an easy one to make a mistake on. I see a lot of people who don't have their elbows in the best position, and you get a lot more power out of the exercise by making sure that you keep your elbows in tight instead of flaring out. And that's one of the mistakes that I see some people making. Is it's usually paired with too wide of a grip, but they allow their elbows to flare out a little bit, and it usually happens towards the top of the exercise. See how my elbows are flared out? What you want is you want your elbows to be tucked in tight. And when you tuck them in, you're tucking them into your rib cage. So keeping them in tight, and you're almost pulling them down as I'm pulling up to the bar here. You're pulling your elbows straight down alongside your rib cage. You might even skim the edge of your rib cage right here. And the reason you want to do that is because it ties the contraction of your arms and of your lats into the rest of your body. So it makes it into a full body exercise instead of just an arms exercise. So when we're doing the regular pull-up here, you want to keep your elbows tucked in tight into your sides. Not flared out, but tucked in tight throughout the full range of motion. And you'll know that they're tucked in tight if your forearm is hanging vertically from the bar. If it's a little bit wide, it's not going to be optimal. You want to be pulling your body straight up instead of up at an angle, which is awkward and it's not efficient. So along with the elbow positioning, also very important, I alluded to this earlier, is shoulder pack. It's very important. This is one of the most difficult parts of doing a pull-up properly. This is the biggest mistake I see by far anywhere I go, whether it's in a health club or in a park or online in an instructional video, even coaches who are teaching it wrong. You don't want to allow your shoulders to unpack in the pull-up exercise. Whether you're doing pull-ups, chin-ups, kipping pull-ups, or any other variation, this is a strength training movement. And if you're building strength, you need to pack your shoulders down. And what that does is, when you pack your shoulders down, here's the difference. This is an unpacked shoulder. See how my arms are raising up near my ears? And this is a packed shoulder. Pulling my shoulders down towards my rib cage. And what that means is, when I'm not packing my shoulders, I'm resting on the soft muscular tissues around the shoulder joint. And it not only puts strain, unnecessary strain on them, which could cause an injury down the road, and a lot of physical therapists see people who have been injured because of doing pull-ups this way, but it also disconnects your arm, in a sense, from the rest of your body, because you're leaking energy out of that area. If you pack your shoulder down, then you're connecting your arms very strongly to the rest of your core. So it's very important that you do this to get the most power out of the exercise. Make sure you're connecting the energy, the force production that you're building with your arms and your back muscles together so that it's connected to your core. So how we do this is we get into this bottom hanging position, and let's just say that we have a habit of letting our arms slide up, and we just pull our shoulders down into this closed packed position. And we maintain this throughout the full range of motion. So we maintain it as we go up, all the way at the top, and we maintain it as we come back down. We don't allow our shoulders to slide up like this. We keep them packed down throughout the full range of motion. Every repetition, especially at the bottom. The top's important too. Whenever you lose that shoulder pack, you're leaking energy, so you don't want to let that happen. So shoulder pack, very important, and it's good to practice this. And not everybody can extend their arm overhead and keep their shoulder packed down, because you might not just have the range of motion at your shoulder joint. That's when you want to work on your mobility, doing shoulder circles. You might even want to just raise your arm overhead, work on packing it down one at a time, and then eventually with both arms, you can even do little circles in this back position behind your ear. It gets a little bit uncomfortable to shave away the tension in the shoulder joint. If that's something that's limiting your performance, you'll probably notice a big difference in your pull-up performance down the road if you do these mobility exercises for a few weeks or months. So those are the main considerations, the main technique tips when it comes to doing pull-ups. Couple of common mistakes that we haven't covered already is extending your neck at the top to try and get your chin over the bar, because that's one of the common recommendations. I know if you're in the military, they say you got to do a pull-up or a chin-up until you get your chin up over the bar. And what often happens is you get towards the top position and you reach your chin up to get it really high. And that over time could put strain on your neck. I mean, it puts strain on it immediately, but over time it could lead to a pull or something worse. So the most important thing to keep in mind is that everybody's body type is different. The length of your arms in relation to the length of your torso and your neck is going to determine how high your chin gets above the bar. You don't want to worry about getting your chin over the bar, unless, like I said, you're in the military, then they're going to force you. Comes with the territory. What you want to worry about is making sure that you're using the full range of motion and not doing these little partial reps. Another really common mistake. You want to make sure that you're fully flexing your arm so that when you're at the top position, your arm cannot flex anymore and your shoulders cannot be pulled down anymore. That's your full range of motion. It doesn't matter where your chin is in relation to the bar. You could have long arms in relation to your torso, and that would change how high your chin gets. So don't worry about that, and don't hyperextend your neck because you're going to hurt your neck over time. Same thing with other exercises like push-ups and dips. Keep a long spine throughout the full range of motion. Another really common mistake is not allowing the arms to fully extend in the bottom position. I see a lot of people doing pull-ups like this. Oh yeah, repping them out. I can do 50 pull-ups like that, and sure you can, because you're making them really easy. You're not doing the hardest part, which is pulling from the bottom position. This position where your shoulders are packed, your elbows are locked. You want to make sure that you lock your elbows fully at the bottom of every repetition. You're shortchanging yourself. You're going to create a muscle imbalance, and you could injure yourself down the road. You could develop elbow tendonitis, tennis elbow, from doing your pull-ups in that way. And you're not getting nearly as much benefit out of the exercise as you could. That's something people do usually when they've turned it into more of an arms exercise. When you get into the full bottom range of motion here, it's very difficult to raise yourself with just your arms. You have to recruit these large muscles of the upper back. And it's true, to an extent, they are recruited, even if you're just focusing on the arm contraction. But to really maximize your performance, to get as much power as possible out of the bottom position, you want to make sure that you're not just bending your elbows up, but you're pulling these muscles down to contract to raise your body upwards. You're going to get so much more force production out of that. So let's see here. I'm trying to make sure I cover everything for you. Don't want to forget anything. Okay, so one last thing is breathing technique. How do you breathe during the exercise? And for virtually everybody, it's going to be the same technique. Unless you have very specific career-related goals or you're an elite level rock climber, you're probably going to need to use this technique. And that is exhaling forcefully and deeply during the effort phase or the concentric portion of the exercise. That's the part where you're pulling yourself up. So whenever it's hard, that's when you want to exhale. So you're in the bottom position, you're going to exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. And you want to do that because it aids in the power generation for the exercise, because it locks down your whole body. Tighter is lighter. The tighter your whole body is, the more power you'll be able to generate, and the lighter your body will feel. So that's why you exhale as you're ascending towards the bar and inhale on the way down. But the other reason why this is the best way is because it's working with your lungs instead of against them. When you're hanging from the bar, and if my legs are hanging there, that's pulling, that's stretching my lungs open and down. It's just stretching my rib cage up. When my arm is overhead, my rib cage is opened up a little bit more, so I have more room to fit air in there. And when I'm at the top position, there's a little less room. So you don't want to work against your lungs. So when you're in bottom position, you want to have an inhale in your lungs, and when you're going towards the top, you want to let that exhale out, let the air out, so that you're not filling up a balloon in your chest and getting all this extra pressure and getting lightheaded possibly from over-oxygenating your blood from too much of an inhale. So don't even think about the inhale so much, just focus on the exhale. The inhale will take care of itself. As soon as you've exhaled and relaxed your lungs, the air is going to suck right back in. So don't be thinking about, okay, You don't want to be inhaling, which is going to hyperventilate yourself. So just focus on the exhale, and it's as simple as that. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I think I covered everything. If I did not, I'll be sure to make some notes below the video. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know. There's a lot of great resources out there about doing pull-ups, and I'd love to point you in the right direction. This is John Sifferman from physicalliving.com. Take care.